So JC will be talking about tools, and under tools, there's batch, dedupe, and declutter.
All right, so tools, there is a new tool icon. It is on the left side panel and it has a little hammer and a wrench. So those are tools. If you click on it, you'll see that there's 3 different tools included in there. One is batch face tagging, photo dedupe, and photo declutter. So let's go over each one of those tools separately. We'll start with batch face tagging. Wrong button. The great thing about having these tools in their own icon now, in their own space separated, is that when you go to a specific view or to a specific container, say I go to a folder, I can go here to my test folder and I click on this folder called camera testing. If I click on the photo declutter tool, for example, instantly a filter for that folder that I was working in is going to be applied. So when I launch the tool from a specific container or from a specific view, it automatically narrows my library and allows me to work just in that space. And that's just one example of how I do it with photo declutter. Let's do it with the first tool, which is the batch face tagging. Most of the time I do batch face tagging, I go to the people view and then I go to the untagged folder at the very top of the people view. This is a container that exists in the people view that automatically groups all photos in your library for which there is a face. A face has been recognized by the software, but a person hasn't been assigned to that particular face. And as you can tell, there is 2009 faces in that container currently that don't have a person assigned. That is where I do most of my batch tagging, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to do it there. I could go to a specific folder, I could go to a specific album, launch the batch face tagging tool from there, and then it would apply only to the content in that container. So I'm going to open that container right now. It has the 2000 faces, and this is something that we get a question about all the time. The 2009 number means the number of faces, not the number of photos inside this folder, because a photo, as you can see from some of the little thumbnails, a photo might have multiple faces. So that number is the number of faces that remain unassigned to a person in my library. So I'm going to open that up. I am now in that space, and notice that Mylio is showing me individually all the faces that it wants me to recognize. And I could go to any one of these faces. Most of these are not recognized because I still don't know who these people are, but some of them are people that I don't need, like I don't know who that gentleman is. So I could click there and click ignore, and then that face disappears and it shows me another face. But that's a lot of work to do it manually. And that's where the batch face tagging tool comes in. So I'm going to launch that tool. And what Mylio does is it aggregates all the photos that it believes belong to a particular person into a group, into a batch, and it allows me to approve all those people all at once. This is my daughter's grandma, and that is indeed her name. So I can just click the approve button here, and I'm going to approve all of those photos all at once. And then it moves to the next person. And that is indeed Robert, and every photo in the grouping is correct. So I can approve that one, and so on and so forth. Sometimes I might get to a person that is incorrect. Those are all my wife, and those are all me. Sometimes if you get to a person that is not correct, you could click the X just to exclude that one photo, or you can click the question mark to correctly identify the person. But so far, Mylio is batting 100 here, and every suggestion that is presenting is indeed the correct person. So no need for me to correct anything. Yeah, those are all correct. So that is how you use the batch tool. Of course, if the guess or the proposal that Mylio is presenting is not correct, you would hit the reject button. If it's a grouping that doesn't apply, that is a person that you don't want to match or to have a specific container for in your people view, you can hit ignore.
So JC, before you go forward on this example here, where there's two faces being shown because it's so close, can you show stepping into the container to see both circles?
Absolutely. At any time, you can click on the photo, and then you can see the specific faces. And Mylio was referring to the face that is highlighted in blue here. That is indeed Emily. So I can step into any photo, see all the photos in there. All the other photos in this example are already tagged. You notice that they all have their names. Emily was the only one that was missing, and that's why Mylio brought it up. But it couldn't zoom into the face anymore than it was already doing. But if I approve it, it's going to approve the right face. But if you want to make sure, yes, absolutely, step into the photo and do it that way. All right, so that is the face batch tagging tool. Great tool. You can click the X on the upper right corner to exit that tool, to exit out of that mode. And now I'm back into that container of untagged photos. If I go back here, you'll notice that the number of photos that are no longer assigned has been reduced by about 100 people. So very quickly, I can go through using the batch face tagging tool and assign the correct names to the faces that Mylio has recognized.
And for those of you that are a longtime user, all those tools are now located in the left-hand toolbar there. So that's just the tools icon, and you can enter batch face tagging mode from any view. You used to have to be in the, you used to have to navigate to people and then navigate to the all people view and then find the button. If you were anywhere else, you couldn't find it. Now you have a one-click way to get to batch face tagging from any view. So if you feel like batch face tagging because you got a few minutes, it's just 2 clicks away.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great way to quickly filter things. So let's talk about the next tool, which is the photo dedupe tool. For this tool, I'm going to select all of my photos, and I'm in the all photos view. And then I'm going to launch the tool from that mode. And when I click photo dedupe, it takes me through these steps. These little notifications with the blue background are just tutorials that happen the first time you launch the tool. You can walk through them. I recommend you read them. It has very valuable information in it. But what you can do is when you get to the end, you can click this don't show again checkbox, and you won't have to go through them, or they won't show every single time.
Or
I always
if you
leave
tend
it.
to forget things and you only use tools occasionally, don't check that box, and you'll
Exactly.
be reminded the next time you launch the tool.
Yeah, I never check the box because I'm constantly demoing this. So I wanted to show up so that I can explain it to people. You can also click that little X to close those explainers at any time. So notice that because I was in the all photos view and I was looking at all of my photos, there are no filters applied. I'm looking at my entire library. And because I have already curated my library considerably, there are only 29 sets of duplicates in my library. However, if I were to select a specific folder, let's say I go to my Apple Photos folder. So I'm going to exit out of that tool. I'm going to go to my folder view, and I'm going to go into my Apple Photos folder. So if I launch the tool using the new tools menu from the Apple Photos folder, you'll notice that the Apple Photos filter is applied. And now it's only showing me 29 sets of duplicates because it's narrowing the scope of the deduplication work to only that folder. And you can assign any quick filter to dedupe to narrow down what you're looking at. So if you happen to have a lot of duplicates in your library, we get emails into support all the time with people that have very, very large sets of duplicates. I always recommend that you start in smaller groups, that you do the work in smaller groups, both because it's easier for you, but also because it's easier on your computer. Deduping is a resource-intensive process, particularly deleting the duplicates. So narrow it down by using a folder, by using other quick filter criteria, and create a smaller job so that you can manage it better.
Well, and let's address why that's more resource intensive, JC, because
Yes.
you're not just deleting when you delete with Mylio. You could be deleting across multiple machines, and we merge the metadata, right? So like by default, if you had rated one photo but maybe face tagged the other, maybe you had done some work on your phone and it was offline, and then you synced with your computer and you had different information on the two devices. We'll merge that together.
Yes, absolutely. And not only that, we double check our work. So if you select to delete duplicates, before Mylio deletes them, it runs a test on both photos to really make sure that they are duplicates before it deletes a photo. And if that test fails, it will warn you, I didn't delete these photos because computationally, the test didn't match. So Mylio checks when you first import the photos, it checks for duplicates. And when you try to delete duplicates, it rechecks again. And there's lots of reasons why we do that, but primarily we're just trying to protect you from deleting media that you shouldn't delete. So that is why the process is resource intensive, along with everything else that Rich just mentioned. Now, how do you use the tool itself? Well, it's really very simple. Mylio is going to present you. I'm going to close the quick filters for now so that they're not in our way. Mylio is going to present you information about what duplicates it has found. It has found 21 sets of duplicates. And in this case, every set happens to have 2 photos in them. So the total number of duplicate files is 42. Sometimes you might see 21 sets, but the number of files is much higher than double, because a set can have 3, 4, 5, 10 duplicates of the same photo. What we're going to do next is we're going to select which of the duplicates to delete and which one to keep. Now, I could do this by hand, and in my case, I only have 21 sets, so it would be easy for me to do it by hand by just selecting which one I want to keep and which one I want to delete. The ones that I check are going to be deleted. The ones that I do not check are going to be kept. I can, however, especially if I have a bigger set, have Mylio assist me on the checking of these duplicates by using the auto check tool, which you can find at the bottom right corner of the screen here. When I click on auto check, Mylio presents me with a lot of criteria on what Mylio is going to consider when checking a photo to be selected as the duplicate to be removed. Now, if you use the default criteria, it's going to work really well in the majority of cases, but you can define this further either by changing the priority order. So for example, if creation day is something that's really important to me, I can grab that criteria and move it to the top and have that be more important than everything else. I can also decide whether, in the example of a photo that was edited, I want to keep photos that were edited, yes, or I want to delete photos that were edited, then I would say no. So lots of options here on how you can have Mylio help you select which of the duplicates is removed. I'm not going to go into great detail. Yes, sir.
Before we move past this tool, there was a question that I think we should address, and then there is one real useful one that people miss at the top there, that little plus button. Can you show that one?
Yeah, I was going to talk about that next, because this happens all the time, right? People say, okay, I have duplicates, but it's photos that I have moved to the specific folder and I don't want them to be deleted from that folder. So what you can do is you can say, you can add that folder and you can select any folder in your library and say, if the photo is in my, in this case, iPhone library, I want you to either remove it or keep it. I'm going to select keep, right? And when I do that and I run auto check, here's what will happen. If there's a photo, a copy of a photo that is not in that folder, Mylio is going to select that one for deduplication, for removal. Look at the first example here. The photo that was in the folder I selected, the JC iPhone library, is going to be kept. A photo that was elsewhere in my library was selected for removal. So that is how you use that tool. And you can add multiple folders here. You can click the little trash can to remove it. but it's a great way to make sure that if you've already done certain folder organization and you want to make sure that the photos that you put in a specific folder are kept, you can use that tool to do so. So run auto check, Mylio selects those duplicates for removal. And then we have the option to either delete the check photos or move them.
And JC, I'm going to bang through a couple of the Q&A questions really quick, and then we can jump into DeClutter. So there's a misunderstanding of, where is it deleting from, the vault or here. Remember, folks, having one copy on each of your devices is a form of protection. Those aren't duplicates. This is when you have multiple copies because you put the memory card in and you imported 5 times to different locations or folders, or you went and found a bunch of hard drives and backed up all these old hard drives and you didn't realize that you'd copied the data to them multiple times. So this is true file level duplicates, not visually similar files. That's next. This is true duplicate files where they're actually the same file and you have too many copies on one device. So that should cover that, Carla. And then Jane's asking about if you've edited in different versions in other applications. Jane, those are no longer duplicates. Those are actually different files. We'll talk about visual similarity next and sorting by time. So dedupe is only for true duplicate files. So ones that have been truly duplicated because of exact data. Okay. And Mylio deletes it from your hard drive because Mylio is managing your hard drives. So it deletes it from your hard drive in your devices. So when you delete in Mylio, you really are deleting. And that's why we ask you to confirm a couple of times before you actually, it runs. It isn't just
we'll delete it everywhere. Everywhere that Mylio controls.
But if you click yes 3 times in a row and then you have an anxiety attack, you could still go to a device that had originals and they're going to be in your system trash can. Or if you're really uncertain, there was a move button there too, JC, right?
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. For people that are paranoid, and I fall directly in that category, instead of deleting them, you can move them. And when you choose to move files, Mylio will still merge the metadata of the files that are being removed from your library. And then it says, okay, pick a location for me to put this file. So if you have another scratch drive or spare drive, you can connect that to your computer, move those photos to that drive and take it offline. And you haven't deleted the media. You simply removed it from your Mylio catalog. And that means that it's going to be removed from every device, but the originals have been moved to a location of your choosing. Now, be sure that when you pick a location that is not part of your Mylio library already, or you'll get an error.
Okay, so JC, why don't you switch to declutter? And while you're doing that, Kim, I want to emphasize here, these wouldn't be different resolutions. Mylio's dupes are true duplicate, exact same file size, exact same bit for bit file size. The only thing that's different might be the metadata. So these are true. These are not lower resolution clones. Now we're going to show you our declutter tool, which can often find those, especially if they have the same creation date.
Yes, and what I want to show you is that you can not only use a container to launch any one of your tools from, like I showed you before. I went to a specific folder or to a specific view, but you can set a number of filters, and then once you have that filter view, then launch the tool. So what I'm going to do is, in my all photo view, I'm looking at all of my photos here. I'm going to open quick filters, and I'm going to filter by a specific camera. So I recently changed manufacturers. I went from Nikon to Sony. So now I'm only using Sony cameras. So I'm asking Mylio to only show me photos made with Sony cameras. And I'm going to get more specific and go to the specific camera I'm using, which is the 7R5. And I know that there's a lot of similar photos of that camera. So I apply that filter. I'm going to the tools menu and I'm going to select photo declutter. And now Mylio is going to show me photos that were taken that match the aspect ratio and match the camera. And when we say match the camera, we don't just match the camera model, we match the camera serial number, because that photo is that information is contained in every photo. and that were taken within a specific amount of time. Right now, it defaulted to 2 seconds. I can change that to whatever I want. I can even type a specific duration. But what Mylio is doing is showing me photos that were taken, in this case with a particular camera, very close to each other, so that I can go through and see, oops, we just managed to crash Mylio. Let's open it back up.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, look at that wonderfully fast restart time. Okay, so the difference there, JC, with the matching of cameras is, especially like if you and say a spouse were both taking pictures at the same event, you could have pictures on the same time, but they wouldn't be duplicates. So this way you're narrowing it down.
Correct. So I'm going to launch the DeDupe tool again. Oh, sorry, wrong tool. Let's go back. Mylio still remembers the filter. Declutter. All right. So now if I go into a group of photos, it's showing me all the photos that were taken within a certain time, in this case, 2 seconds. So I can quickly move through these photos and I can go, okay, that first photo is pretty good. I want to keep it, but the next 2 photos are kind of blurry. So I can go ahead and select those 2. I went too fast. Select those 2 photos. And now those photos are marked for deletion, and I could go ahead and delete the photos that I've checked. So this is what declutter is about. It's about you finding groupings of photos that are very similar, that were taken within a fraction of a second or a couple of seconds of each other with the same camera, and then decluttering your library by removing the ones that you don't need. It's another way of reviewing. We do have our quick review tool, which is another great way of reviewing, but this aggregates photos that are similar. So in many cases, if the metadata of a photo has been preserved and you have the same photo with different resolutions, they will show up in this tool. You will have one that might be a larger resolution and one that is a smaller resolution, but they were both taken at the same time with the same camera. So they'll show up next to each other. And in that case, you want to choose, I recommend, the higher resolution photo to be kept and the lower resolution one to be thrown away. And notice that that information is contained right here in the summary. It tells you what camera it was and the resolution of the photo. But if you double click and open the information panel, you can see all of the other metadata associated with your photos. So those are the 3 tools.
Yeah, and JC, before you leave that, could you either show a quick example like in all photos view or in your camera roll? Because it's not just, going to be pictures of things like this. Like, yeah, just do a simple one, like maybe your camera roll cleanup. Choose the camera roll cleanup collection.
Oh, sure.
And that's a great one to kind of look at your recent cell phone pictures. So camera cleanup, and then go ahead and run the photo dedupe tool, or the declutter tool.
Declutter, okay.
Yep. And so, that's gonna, narrow it down.
You're going to top here.
Yep. And so what's great here is you can apply smart filters to this to see things like eyes open or eyes closed or just shots with people. So why don't you go ahead and apply, maybe the eyes closed filter or the blurry filter, and it'll help nominate pictures. Yep. So now he's getting suggestions of blurry pictures to clean up.
Yep.
So we'll be improving this tool later with some auto marks as well. And here's a great tip. Why don't you go ahead and double click on one of those, JC, and show review mode. So you can open up the first picture and now use your space bar to mark the bad ones, or the arrow key to go to the next one. So you could just keep going picture by picture and mark a bad one, and then go to the next collection, like bad, 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 and then just keep going, and you're marking the ones for delete. So that kind of makes it easy to see potential problem photos that you want to clean up. And so, in this case, if you wanted to mark one for delete, JC, you would just check the box, right?
Yeah, and I've been doing that, yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yep, it was just, it was skipping right to the next one because of the...
I'm just going a little fast.
Yep.
I want to keep both of those, right? Because that's an action shot. So I'll keep that one.
Yeah. So you guys see how
here's one that's too dark.
Yeah.
And that one's blurry. So now when I go back, all those selections of marks that I've done, notice that all those selections have been preserved, and I can delete them all at once, or I can also move them just like we do with the photo deduplication tool.
So the declutter tool is not just an automated tool. You can kind of narrow it down, like, let me declutter my camera roll, or let me declutter, I just got done shooting my son's basketball game or my daughter's basketball game, and there's a whole bunch of shots that aren't good. I can go through and say, mark the ones that are blurry or mark the ones that are too dark, and then you can kind of review those and decide if you want to keep them or not keep them. So it's really just great for cleanup in general, and it kind of narrows it down so you're only looking at photos that you've got lots of them and lots of pictures taken at a similar time frame. So you feel more comfortable deleting when you say, oh, well, I took a picture 2 seconds later or 5 seconds later. I don't mind deleting some of these because I know I have more angles or more variety.
Absolutely. All right.
So what's up next, JC?
Were there any other questions?
There's a few, I think, but are they related to specifically to this area, Lori?
Yeah, there's one for DeDupe. Jane is asking, if I have one photo, I edited several times in a different program and I want to keep the different versions, can I rename them in the DeDupe view?
Yeah, we covered that. The DeDupe tool is not, those are no longer dupes anymore. So we said that those are different versions. Those are not the same file.
And let me just go over that one more time. So what the DeDupe tool does is computationally, it finds photos that are identical bit by bit. So if you take a photo and you change the brightness of it and save those changes, now those photos are not identical to the computer. To the human eye, you might say, oh, that's the same photo just because one's slightly brighter than the other. But to the computer, those are completely different files. So the computer recognizes that the files are identical. That's why the photo has to be the same resolution, the same size, even the same format. So if you have a raw photo from a camera and a JPEG version of the same photo, to the computer, those are not the same files. They're two different files because bit by bit, the data in the photos is different.
And so I guess I think the biggest thing here for people to understand, JC, because this is a common misunderstanding because other programs, so one of the things that Mylio does is it tries to be precise. We try to use the right words for things and to be accurate. So we're trying to be precise. And so you use DeDupe to free up camera space, to free up disk space, I should say, like wasted disk space that you don't need. And so we're doing that to really remove wasted disk space. And this happens a lot of time due to user error or when you consolidate your library. A lot of you are giving examples where you've got multiple variations of the file. Oh, I edited it 5 different times and I want to find those, or I made lots of different flavors of this, or it took me 20 tries to get the action shot of the kid jumping just right. Or, like we took 15 group photos and the eyes were closed in all but 2 of them. That's decluttering. So just use the right tool for the job and you'll be fine. So.
Yes, absolutely.